Hello, everybody. We are here at the Pariser Platz. My name is Jeanine Meerapfel. I'm a filmmaker and the president of the Academy. I'm sitting here together with Andreas Kilb, who is going to help us go through this evening. We have an interesting discussion tonight, an Academy discussion about cinema landscapes and streaming worlds. Normally, every year, some days before the Berlinale, we do a discussion about the state of cinema or state of cinema compared to other things. And since the Berlinale is not happening like every year, we still decided we're going to have our talk. Then we need the talk about cinema at a moment in which we don't have cinemas. So since we are all very, very eager to go back to cinemas, we are still living in the land of streaming. So we have some wonderful guests tonight, and I'm happy to invite you to meet them. First of all, I want to mention Christine Berg. She's chairwoman, Christine Berg, she's chairwoman of HDF Kino e.V., so to say, the queen of the cinemas in Germany, somebody who takes care of the cinemas in Germany. Meret Ruggle, director of Trigon Film. Hello, Meret. Distributed and also responsible for a streaming platform called Filmingo. We have Christoph Terhechte, artistic and managing director of the Documentary Film Festival in Leipzig, an old, well-known man of festivals in Berlin. We have Anna Winger, writer, creator, executive producer of different Netflix series under much more other things that she produces and does. One of the Netflix series was Unorthodox. And we have a surprise guest that came to us 2 days ago, and I'm very happy about that. And this is Jon Barrenechea. Hello, Jon. It's great that you are with us. He's the vice president for marketing at Movie. Movie is also a streaming platform. And and he is now in England, in London. So we're going to begin our talk. I give over to Andrea that is going to put the first questions. After an hour, you, the public, the audience, which I cannot see now, sadly enough, can put questions. You can use the chat system to send us questions, which we will answer after an hour. We will open the discussion, if you wish. So thank you very much for being with us, and I'm very happy to welcome you today.
Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Andreas Kilb. I'm working for the Frankfurter Allgemeine in the Berlin office. Just to talk about the date. This is February the 9th, 2021. It is almost a year since March 18, 2020, when the first lockdown in Germany was established. Since then, no movie theater has been able to open in the usual way to accommodate its audience as we are used to. Since November the 2nd, no single movie theater is open again in Germany. And we are facing a prolongation of the current lockdown, maybe until Easter or even longer. So the cinema is in crisis. This is the game changer that puts everything at stake that we have accommodated to in recent years, or since even the beginning of cinema. And platforms that offer streaming films and serials are booming. This seems to be the situation that we have to face, and we will be talking about the consequences and maybe also the hopes that will entail from this crisis. So my first question goes to Christine Berg. Mrs. Berg, you are head of an organization that represents the movie theater industry in Germany. Could you just give us an overview? What is the real situation of the movie theaters in Germany? What are the financial consequences at this point? What are we looking forward to? What should happen and what will happen? Maybe how many movie theaters will we still have in 1 year's time?
Wow, a lot of questions. First of all, thank you very much for this warm welcome, Jeanine. It's yeah, we missed cinema, all of us, I think, and we have a future. This is what I want to say at first, because I think it's very important that we have a hope. And what is the situation? I think there are two sides of situations. One side is the financial side. This is the worst side, because the theater, you already mentioned it, Andreas Kilb, that we are still closed since 3 months now. And last year was really a horrible year for us. And we have a lot, Germany has a lot of money for subsidy, but unfortunately it doesn't come to the movie theaters or to the people who need the money. So this is a big challenge for us. And I want to say challenge. We are in charge with all the ministers and talked to them and said, we need the money, please give us the money. But there are a lot of mountains that we have to go over it. And I hope that this situation will change very soon. This is the first thing. The second thing is, and I think this is very, very important, it's the other side, it's the emotional side. Because this COVID-19 do something with people and do something also with cinema owners, because they don't know this kind of situation. For example, that they are closed so long and they don't know what's happened in the future, because there are two things which makes me just a little bit afraid. The first thing is we don't know when we can open. You said it already, Andreas Kilb, maybe on Eastern. This is what we wish, that we can open at Eastern, because we need really to open, but we don't know. And the other thing is, I think this is our really big challenge for the future. If we open, we will have films. We know this. There are a lot of films who are waiting for that we open. But if we show them, do we have them exclusive? Or maybe they want, I'm talking about the big ones. Do we have them with Netflix and Co together? When do they go to the streaming? So what's happened to the film industry the last 12 months? Maybe the world changed, we don't know. So this is the second thing. So the cinema owners, they're just like, they have a lot of hope. And we know that we will survive. And I will say, right now we have the situation that 7 cinemas are not open again. We know this already. So, and I hope that we will have only maybe 3 more, but I think the rest of them, they will really survive and they will open. So I think this is good news, because we have also some good news, and this is there I want to end. First of all, they will open. Second, we come together, the film industry in Germany, we came together and we talk more, and we try to do or create the future together. And I think this is good news. And we have a lot of films. And everybody knows what it means. When we open, we will have films the whole year. So, Jeanine, you can go to the cinema then, and you will see brilliant films. I know it.
So you are saying out of several hundred non-art house movie theaters in Germany, only maybe 10 will not survive?
Yes. Yes, right now, the situation is that we have only 7 that they don't want to open again. And I think maybe there are 3 more, but I think that's all. Yeah.
Will you be able to give us an idea if when it is possible to open, is there a plan, a clear plan, how the hygiene, how the wie sagt man das? Hygiene is right? The hygiene situation will be in the cinemas. Which filters have the cinemas? Which conditions they have so that people know that they will not be immediately in a trap to be... is there something like that? And is it transparent enough, what you say?
Okay. Oh, I can tell you a lot about this because first of all, yes, you mean Hygieneplan, huh? I don't know the English name for this, yeah, but everybody knows what I mean. First of all, yes, we have this, and we have this for every section. First of all, most all of the cinemas have now online ticketing. So you can use this, and when we started 1 year ago, we had only 20% of the tickets will buy by online ticketing. In the summer last year, we had 80%, 80. So a lot of people use this. This is the first thing. The second thing is, for us, for the cinemas, it's very easy to have a plan for the foyer. And if you want to buy popcorn or whatever, a wine, a beer, so it's very easy because most of the cinemas are big, so you can go there, and we can make the screens not on the same time. So what we can do is the first screen is maybe at 8, the next one is at 8:30. So there are not so many people in the cinema at the same time. This is very important. And then we have in the screening room, this is also very easy for us because you're sitting there and you're looking to the screen, but you're not talking. So this is also very easy for us. I think for us, that's not the problem. I think the problem is that the government, they have to accept it, that cinemas are really best prepared for everything. And this is our main problem right now, because the government said, oh no, you can't open the cinemas because we don't know what's happened in the cinemas. So this is our real problem right now. And I think, because you ask, I think, yes, it's transparent and everybody knows it. Because we have it on our website and everything. So I hope that all our audience knows it.
Okay. Meret Ruggle, you are the director of an enterprise that was founded explicitly to bring world cinema to Europe, to Switzerland in this case. Trigon Film acquires film rights for productions from South America, Asia, Africa, and distributes them in Switzerland and in Europe. If I understand correctly, you have had a major rise in DVD distribution, and you yourself have also founded an online streaming portal that distributes the Trigon offers, the Trigon films. Could you explain to us what this situation now with the Corona crisis does to Trigon Film?
Yes, sure. So for all of us, I guess it has been a crazy year. So as you said, we are mainly a film distribution. So we are a foundation. We have members. It's a bit of a special structure that we have. We're not really an enterprise. So we do actually have a mandate also by the state to distribute the movies, and but most and foremost we do it out of our passion, obviously. So we've been doing this since 1988 when the foundation was founded. And as you mentioned correctly, very early on we launched our own DVD edition because since you're passionate about those movies and about those movies from the regions that you mentioned, it was very important for us that they stay alive, so that we can prolong actually their lives after the cinema release, which is the first release that we used to do, which is slowly changing. We will certainly discuss this later on as well. But so I think it was in the 90s that we launched our own DVD edition, and we have been producing hundreds and hundreds of DVDs ever since. And since technology is changing, streaming came up, and in 2013 we launched our own platform. First, we only distributed our own films there. It was on our own website, and it was called Online Cinema, pretty straightforward. And we only had Trigon films on there. And we do mainly work, as you said, in Switzerland, but we also acquire rights for Germany and Austria. So those are the three main territories that we work in. And then 2 years ago, we actually decided, or it's 3 years ago now, in 2018, we decided to expand this offer and to take on board other independent distributors, because the situation is really different now from when Trigon Film was founded. Back then, there was very little interest for movies such as the ones that we distribute in cinemas. The interest from the audience was there, which we proved by opening this foundation, and with the huge success that we had then. But the cinemas were not that interested in showing these kinds of films, and now it's extremely different. You all know the biggest example from last year with Parasite winning every major prize they could have won. That's an extremely new situation. We have a lot of distributors working in our sector now, but we still also have a special interest in, first feature films, smaller productions, independent filmmakers from around the world. And it's extremely important for us that their works are being accessible for the long term. Because when we as a distributor buy the rights, we usually buy them for 10 years, and sometimes we prolong them. And so what we did is that we made them accessible through these various platforms, through DVD and through our own streaming platform, Filmingo. And now in the last year, of course, it has changed extremely. It was similar to the German way. The Swiss government also decided pretty soon to go into lockdown a little bit after Germany, I think it was, and close down the cinemas. For the second time, we had exactly the same discussions here. It was clear that the priorities are not given to the cultural sector, but rather to other industries. So we had to go into a cinema lockdown in early December. For some part of Switzerland, it was in November. So it was one of the things that was extremely difficult was to handle this situation with the diversity in Switzerland, that we had different lockdowns within Switzerland. So we work nationwide, and we had to release movies in different parts of the country. And as far as I'm aware, it was similar in Germany with different Bundesländer. But here it became extremely difficult. So we have movies like the Berlinale winner, There Is No Evils, that are still waiting to be released in some parts of the country. In others, they have been released for one day, and then the cinema was shut down, which was the case in the capital in Bern. And in other cantons, they were running for like 2 weeks, and it was quite successful, but there were restrictions. People were hesitant to go to the cinema. We all knew you all know how it was. So cinema-wise, it was an extremely difficult year. And then on the other hand, we had the streaming platform, which huge boost, like we could have never imagined. We had a server breakdown after 3 days of the first lockdown. We were completely unprepared for this, obviously. And I know that for many other streaming platforms, it was similar. And we've managed to become one of the biggest subscriber-based platforms here in Switzerland in this sector as well. So this has been a joy to see how this has evolved. And on the same time, I always have two hats on, so it was quite an up and down situation last year.
Anna Winger, you have produced 2 very successful serials for Netflix. So you are the expert.
No, sorry. One is for Netflix and the other is for Amazon.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, right. For
Only
Amazon,
one for Netflix.
Yeah.
All the monsters, all the monsters.
So,
great.
Yeah. So you are the expert for Amazon and for Netflix. You wrote and produced together with your husband the Deutschland serial, Deutschland 83, 86 and 89, all the 3 installments for Amazon Prime. And then you wrote and produced the very successful and also prize-laden serial Unorthodox for Netflix. So my question to you would be, what is the difference between a cinema production, a movie production, and a serial production for a streaming service, which at the moment also produces feature films? How would you say the rules of storytelling change when you have such a larger format?
Okay, so I first of all, I love going to the movies. I really miss going to the movies. My husband and I generally go to the movies once a week when the movies are open. So I guess I see what I'm doing as something separate from the movies, because making series is something that it's not a choice between being in cinema and being on a streamer. It's a choice between being on national television and being on international television, if that makes sense, or on-demand TV that's available globally. So that's, for the kind of work that I make, which, is for a global audience, a streamer like Netflix is a great partner because, well, it's something very simple. They have the pipeline, I'm really interested in reaching the audience. An example that, I made a TV show in a language that has no country. So it's Yiddish, to clarify, that Unorthodox is in Yiddish. So for me, there was no national television that was appropriate for this show, and so the fact that it dropped in 190 countries at the same time was just an incredible thing. And you just have to imagine that. So a niche audience, which certainly the audience for Unorthodox could be described as niche in the sense that it's in a language most people don't understand, and it's about people most people know nothing about, or a culture most people know nothing about, is a niche audience is quite small if you're just looking at it nationally. But if you're looking at it in the aggregate of the niche audience in 190 countries, it's actually really huge. And so a project like Unorthodox, which was really a labor of love and made with, on a relatively low budget and with, intense artistic intent and emotional intent, suddenly finds itself in the world. And, it was my first time working with Netflix, but it was an incredible experience because we had people in Saudi Arabia and Argentina and, India and Los Angeles and Italy, where they were in severe lockdown and it was really popular, all talking to each other, because when you combine that with social media, there was this incredible conversation that crossed borders of faith and culture and language that we could only have dreamed of. So in simple terms, that, that pipeline is unlike any other pipeline when you're interested in the audience, but I don't think that everybody is interested in that. I think there's so many films that you can only see at festivals, and that the experience of seeing them in a festival is really special, and nobody feels that it's necessary to have a wide audience. But I guess, we went into making Unorthodox feeling that we were making something very specific that had a universal message or a universal storytelling. And so it was that experience was, there's no way we could have prepared for it, but it was an incredible experience. In answer to something that you asked me about whether the storytelling is impacted by it being on Netflix, I mean, that wasn't my experience. Like, I've never even been to Netflix. You know, my experience of Netflix is like a couple of people that I work with. That's it. It's like the production experience for me is no different. As a producer, as a writer, you know, from an artistic standpoint, was not different from working for anyone else. You know, we work in very small constellations. You know, I basically only worked with the creative executive, Rachel Eggebeen, who works with me, and the marketing, one person from marketing, and then one person from PR. And that was like later, you know? So I didn't experience Netflix as being a different partner than I would have, that I'm assuming I would have experienced ZDF or any other TV station. But the pipeline is.
Did you have a similar experience with Amazon Prime Video, or is that different?
Well, the story of Deutschland 83 is different because we did the first season for RTL, and so we worked. No, it was the same. It was like with RTL, we worked with one Redakteurin who was our person. She was our network exec, Uli Leibfried, and we worked in a very, I mean, I made that one with my husband, right? So we were like writing it in the middle of the night. I mean, that was different because it was, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but it was not different in terms of my relationship with the network was very small. I think that there's a fantasy that television is made by, armies of people, but at least in my work, it really comes down to just a few people in a room. Production is one thing, but I'm talking about writing and development is just done in a small constellation. And then production is production. So the biggest difference that I would be able to locate, because, with Deutschland, we made it for RTL, and then it came out in America first, and then it came out in the UK, and it traveled around the world, and it was on a different station, we had a different partner in every area of the world. So whereas with Netflix, it was like one partner, one branding, one trailer, they just dropped it in the world, right? And from a creative standpoint, for me, of course, that was much more efficient. And it was nice because, with Deutschland, which, is my first baby and it'll always be my favorite. I love that show. It's very hard to find it. I never know where it's on. I wouldn't be able to tell people in Argentina and Saudi Arabia how to watch it. So that was because it's not on the same station everywhere. But in terms of working with the redacteurs, like the people who are your creative partners on the project, I wouldn't say it was different at RTL than it was at Netflix. And then at Amazon, also the same at Amazon. We then switched to Amazon for the second and third seasons, and it was the same. But I would say, you have to find the people that you, like in anything, you find the people who understand you and give you the creative space to tell your stories. And so I would say the experience with Netflix was a good fit for me simply because I'm interested in that kind of international conversation.
Thank you. Christoph Terhechte, last year was your first year as director of the DOC Leipzig, the International Documentary and Animation Film Festival in Leipzig. And before you have been the director of the Marrakesh Film Festival, and before that, for almost 20 years, been the head of the Forum section of the Berlinale. So you really know this business by heart. Then again, this first edition was a hybrid festival in Leipzig. You could only show very few films live on screen and very many films online. And if I understand correctly, there were certain limitations because of film rights. You could only have 800 streamings per film. and you could only show half of the films to a only German audience that you used to show. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more how this took place and what your assessment of this festival's edition is?
Well, no, it had nothing to do with rights. It was our conscious decision to limit the number of available tickets to 800 because we wanted to have the online part complementary to the films in the theaters. So we said we will not sell more than 800 tickets per film. And the decision to cut down the program was actually an artistic decision taken before we decided to go hybrid with the festival. We were happening in exactly the very last week when the cinemas were still open until November 1st, which was the day of our closing ceremony. So it seemed like we got away, but in fact, since the numbers of infections were rising, we noticed that a lot of people were afraid to go to the cinema, and even people who had bought a ticket online did not use it. So cinemas were not as well attended as they could have been, even with the 50% rule. But I mean, people who came did feel very, very comfortable and enjoyed the festival nonetheless. And we were able to bring the filmmakers live to the audiences and to actually have a few screenings of all of the competition films every night, 2 screenings, where we combined the online element and the cinema. So people could participate at the exact same hour online and even take part in the Q&A with the directors after the screening. That was successful. But it also presented a problem because I think that because of the online element, some people decided that it's easier to watch films from home. And it's something that I think we will not repeat. The principle was that we showed a film and then the next morning we would release it online. I think if we're going to have both a real festival in situ and an online element, we'll have the whole online festival after the festival in the city of Leipzig in the cinemas. So the decision to do that was based on the fact that when we had to come up with a concept, we didn't know what was going to happen. We wanted to prepare it for both situations. This year, it seems much more likely that it will be possible to have a festival in the theaters. I can only hope that Frau Berg is right and that the cinemas will still be open then. But we also have to prepare for the case where that's not happening and where we have fewer screens available. It's a threat to film festivals worldwide, especially when you show the type of films that Doc Leipzig or even the Berlinale shows, films that are not the big commercial blockbusters, that when they're in cinemas, they usually play on smaller screens. But during the festival, and that's the magic of the festival, they play on the big screens. They play in the huge theaters. And if those theaters are gone, then I don't know how to run festivals anymore, at least not in the way that we're used to. And that's a situation where we need to prepare for. And I can only hope that the pessimists are wrong and the optimists are right. But festivals certainly need to prepare. And so the online element is something that we will keep in festivals, especially for the industry parts, for the market parts in festivals. Because I think that after almost 2 years that this whole thing will have occupied us by the end of this year, a lot of people will feel comfortable with attending festivals, industry representatives online, participate in the pitchings and the panels and so on, like we do now online, and maybe not take a transatlantic flight to visit a festival for just a day or 2. So this element, I'm sure, will survive and will have to continue making festivals hybrid.
Would you say it could be possible that you could even have more visitors, a larger public, if you stay also online?
Sure. I mean, we could enlarge the public also geographically, meaning that if we are online and we do geo-blocking, because I believe in geo-blocking for festivals so they don't compete even more then they have to. I don't want to take away other festivals' chances of still having a national or a continental premiere by not geo-blocking. But we could enlarge our audience at Doc Leipzig to other cities in the region, but also in cities like Munich and Hamburg. So that is right. But at the same time, I believe that the strength of festivals lies in the local event. And I believe that cinema is the place to see films first. I am not at all against streaming services. I use them a lot. But to be honest, when I see a beautiful film on Mubi or the Criterion channel, and I'm doing that all the time, the better the film, the more I wish I would be sitting in a cinema and seeing it on the big screen. That's just the way I was brought up, and this is my passion for cinema. It's been a long time that film critics and cinephiles have been using other mediums to enjoy cinema and to see more films than were available in cinemas. We've been using VHS tapes, we've been using DVDs, nowadays we're using streaming platforms, and that's fine. I don't see those as competitions for the cinema. But some films are just made for the big screen. And that's how we program, that's how we select films for a film festival. So this is going to be our priority and stay our priority.
That was a very good start to introduce our next guest, Jon Barrenechea. Jon, you are the Vice President Marketing for Mubi, an online streaming platform that works, if I understand it correctly, as a kind of art house for streaming viewers. You present not so mainstreamy films on your platform. 1,500 per Germany, you told me. Could you expand a little bit on the business model and on the philosophy of this platform? Do you want to be a competition for movie theaters? Do you want to be a partner for movie theaters? What's the name of the game?
Sure. Yes. Well, so Mubi is a streaming service. And you could say that the films we stream are art house. It's one way of describing them. We just call them great films because sometimes we do have in our library, a film from David Fincher or Catherine Bigelow as well. So we don't distinguish in terms of size. We just look for quality cinema. And the way it works is every day a film is added to the service. That's our film of the day. And you can explore in our catalog. There's collections of films, great Italian cinema, female filmmakers. It's a huge mix of content. But to answer your question, where we don't see cinemas as competition at all. In fact, we have been partnering with cinemas around the world for years now. We work directly with cinemas in different ways. We are also theatrical distributors of films in the US and in the UK. So we release films in cinemas before they arrive on Mubi. We also launched an app called Mubi Go, which is a service for our subscribers with which they can get a free ticket every week to the cinema for a film that we curate. So on Friday, when Joanna Hogg's The Souvenir comes out, we say, this is the best film in cinemas this week. And here's a ticket to go see it as part of your subscription. And what that does is it obviously encourages streamers to get out of the house and go watch a movie in the theater. But it also, we are collaborating with the movie theater, with the cinema, and with the distributor of the film, who may be a different distributor from us. So it's a way of working inside the ecosystem and, growing audiences for great film. And I think I agree with Christoph that the best place to watch, and not only the best place to watch, but the best start for the life of any film is on a big screen. It's where it's birthed. And then from there, its life can continue, hopefully for many years. And I have memories of discovering films like Kubrick's films on TV when I was a kid. And their impact wasn't lessened, but of course there was a different experience when I later saw them in 70 millimeter. So I think we can embrace all these as different experiences as opposed to competing experiences. and have a richer culture and cultural experience for it. So I suppose, I don't know if that helps illuminate our philosophy, but cinemas are very important to us. I used to be a cinema manager for the UK's oldest cinema, and I still live 100 feet from it. So I've projected films 35 millimeters of passion. So all these things are very familiar to us, and we don't see them as aside from us. It's all part of that family of independent and daring cinema that Berlinale and Doc Leipzig embraces. I think we're all in it for the same reasons, in a sense.
Well, let me open up the panel for a general question. To put it very simply, how can we preserve the big screen when we spend more and more time in front of the small screen? Do we need the state? Do we need very fixed rules to keep the streaming services from drying up the financial model of the cinema? Do we need to change our lifestyle again after the pandemic? How can we keep cinema going without losing everything else that we want to keep, without stopping watching streaming serials? How is this whole landscape of images are going to survive? Yes, Mrs. Winger.
I just wanted to say something to what Christoph said, because I think that it's not just that you're seeing it in 70 millimeter and that it's, which is a much better way to see a movie. I agree that on your computer, it's that you're seeing it with other people. I think that people will return to collective experience as soon as they have that opportunity. I think that's a huge factor. It hasn't come up yet, so I just wanted to put it out there, because going to a festival, one of the greatest things about it is being with everyone else and watching something together with people. That's just a huge part of that. It's not just what it looks like, it's that you're emotionally experiencing it with other people. And I think everybody misses that. What do you think? Does anyone
Yeah, I think also that we are forgetting one thing, maybe, that when we are seeing streamed films, which I do like everybody else, and I very much enjoy having that possibility, still we are in the hands of algorithms many, many times. Many, many times we're not seeing what we want to see, but what, in a way, is imposing itself to us. And this loss of our own taste that happens to all of us doesn't happen when we go to cinema or when we go to a festival and enjoy films in a festival, because we decide what we're going to see. And not only that, the fact of making films and then experiencing just the little form of it makes it, in a way, extremely sad. It changes the way that we perceive the world. And I am totally sure that we are losing contact with reality through the use that we are giving to the streaming possibilities.
Yeah, maybe I can so I totally want to underline on what was just being said, that the social experience and the collective experience is so important. And for that, I'm absolutely sure that the biggest threat at the moment to cinemas and to us distributors as well it's not the streaming, it's rather the pandemic and the impacts that the pandemic will have. So if cinemas have to close down, then we will have, just as the festival, but also the distributors, we will have a huge problem, obviously. But the streaming itself, it's a new form of enjoying movies. So I think actually we should rather embrace it than seeing it as a big threat. What concerns me much more, because I'm sure that the visitors that used to enjoy cinema in the way that we rather cinephile people used to enjoy cinema, they will go back after the pandemic. They can't wait to go back to the cinemas. But I think we have to also think about the younger generations. When I sometimes work with schools, or when I talk to teenagers, I myself have a stepdaughter. She's 13 years old. They have a completely different way of growing up with cinema and of consuming cinema. So for them, the cinema is, for a lot of them, I hope not for all of them, for a lot of them, cinema is Netflix, or it is iTunes or Apple TV Plus. So I think that's one of the things we have to work on to, ensure that future generations get to experience the magic of cinema that we already know and that we will go back to enjoy once the cinemas can reopen. So for us, at least here, and this is one thing we certainly will have an eye on in the next years, that we want to work more with schools and young kids to make sure that they don't only get to experience cinema, but then also the world cinema that we stand for here.
Well, can I note some optimism also that from our point of view, the audiences for Mubi are very young, and there's many of them. And I think one of the things, as someone who went to film school and grew up as a cinephile, what I find is that actually young people know more about film than I did at their age, because their access to information and films is so much more vast. Of course, it's what we're talking about is always, like Anna said, a niche, but it's a big niche. And I think I'm optimistic about that audience coming back to cinemas. And we actually saw some evidence of that in the interim between lockdowns in the UK. Some films were released, and the audiences that were ready to come back out were younger audiences. Understandably, given the pandemic, older audiences are being more cautious. So I think there's actually an opportunity with this to reignite that love of cinema going, and cinema as an art form also, for younger audiences, because they are so much more engaged and they do behave differently. And responding to that, not by, a festival of TikTok films, but rather creating bridges between the worlds so that we can, as you said, Meret, the future generations, those are the people who are going to decide whether cinemas exist or not. I have faith that they will always exist because it's a primal social impulse. And the only thing in 120 years of cinema that was able to stop it was something that prevents that social impulse. Everything else has never stopped cinemas from growing. And even right before the pandemic, admissions in many territories were growing. So I think the market is healthy in that sense. It's what we have is this big elephant in the room that is disrupting everything, really. So, I'm eagerly awaiting the return of cinemas, and I think many, many, many millions are too.
Christine Berg, do you share this optimism?
Yeah, I was so shy. I made this and don't speak. So sorry. Yes and no. On the one side, I think we have to win them back. We have to win the admissions back, a lot of them. And we can't really trust that all of them are coming back. So we have to give this feeling, what you give us, Jeanine Meerapfel, this feeling that we have to bring it to them so that they know if they go to the cinema, it's magic. And you can see really a special film. And when I think what is great in cinema, it's not only that you have this big screen and everything. There's only another side. I think if you're looking at a film in the cinema, you can't go out. You can't go out with your handy, with your mobile phone. You can't go out and have a drink or something like this. You have to see the film if you want or not. And if you don't like it, what a pity, you have to see it. And I think this is really cinema. And this is what I think. Every time when I see a film and I think, I don't want to see it because it's, I don't know, it's a thriller or it's too much like Systemsprenger. I mean, I thought, oh no, I want to go out. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. Please let me go out. Let me go out. But there's no chance if you're in the cinema. And after that, I thought this was the best what I ever saw, because I have to see it, and I had no chance to go out. So, and this feeling we have to bring to the people again. But on the other side, I think I'm also optimistic because we have one thing in common. Because there's a study, I don't know if you know the study from, I think it's from the FFA, but I'm not really sure, the study said people who looks Netflix or the streaming, they are also heavy user in cinema. So they want to go to cinema. If the cinema open, they are coming. This is the second thing, the first thing why I'm very optimistic. And I have another idea. Maybe it's a little bit stupid, but the last weeks I thought the COVID-19 was, I don't know the English word for this, ein Beschleuniger. So everything goes very fast. When we go into the COVID-19, we thought, before that, for example, we thought, oh, our future, our challenge is the cinema window. Now, not after the COVID-19, but at the end of it, we see, now we have a big problem because this goes faster. But I think it's the same for the streaming platforms, because the people saw the films 12 months at the streamings, 12 months. So it goes also very fast that they're very tired about it. They want to look at it again. They want to see it. But I think it goes also very fast that they think, okay, now I saw everything. Now I know the algorithms. Now I know that they said to me, okay, you saw, I don't know, what have I seen the last? You saw Lupin, then maybe you like also this and this and this and this. So I think the people are maybe, if we are very lucky, they're just a little bit tired. And then the cinemas are there, and we will say, okay, you can come to us, you can see something else. And we have some very big things. So I think it's not that easy, as I mentioned, but I think there is a big hope. And I think we have a chance, and we have a big chance. But we have to do something for it. We can't say, okay, they want to come and it's no problem. No, we have a problem, and we have to work for them, that they're coming back.
Yeah, Christoph Terhechte, what will happen? Yeah. What will happen to the regional festivals, who play a very important role for the distribution also and the screening of a large part of cinema, which is not so commercial? Do you think that everything will go back to normal again after this?
Allow me to comment quickly on what Jeanine said, and I have another comment, or actually a reply to your earlier question. Jeanine, you are at the mercy of the streamers when you go to Netflix or Amazon. If you watch this, then you'll enjoy that. Or if you search for Paul Mazursky's Next Stop Greenwich Village on Netflix and they don't have it, then they will suggest a lot of other films that have nothing to do with it. That's terrible, but you're not at the mercy of the algorithms when you use Mubi or when you use the Criterion channel. These are curated programs, just like the Trigon website. And this curation, which is something that the festivals do too, is a cultural practice. And cinemas, actually going to the cinema, going to art house cinemas, is a cultural practice. And this is the reply to what you said earlier, Andreas, your question about the obligation of society to support this cultural practice. Yes, I think society has that obligation. I don't understand why every city that has more than maybe 200,000 inhabitants has a museum and a theater, but very, very few afford a cinematheque. This is something that I think we need to change. I do not think that cinemas are in immediate danger, but it's clear that the business model of cinema, at least when it tries to do something different, is less sustainable than the business model of Netflix and the big streaming services. And I think, yes, society has an obligation to preserve, to protect that kind of cultural practice. And that is the same with festivals. There is no festival in Europe that has no governmental subsidies. In fact, that does not rely on at least 2/3 of governmental and communal subsidies. And therefore, I think it would be a natural extension of the idea of festivals to also maintain cinematheques everywhere. In the city of Leipzig, there is a small association that is called Cinematheque, but it doesn't have a cinema. We're working on that. We're lobbying in order to have a place where the cinephiles can say, this is my home from home. I think this is a big challenge for all of us for the future. And Andreas, to answer your second question, I think cinemas, festivals need to make sure to maintain cinemas, need to make sure to work closely with the cinemas in their cities, and to keep screening films on big screens, because otherwise that cultural practice will be lost. I hope that cities, that any place that affords a film festival will also start building houses of culture, which are equipped with cinemas with 35mm projection and certainly digital projection, so that festivals will have these places, these centers of communication, and these I would almost say places of worship for the god of cinema.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, Jeanine, I understand you have a film project yourself, which is almost finished and it's stuck in post-production, and you're hoping for a release or a premiere first?
Yes. First, I wanted to say something to what Christoph said, and I don't know why till now we haven't got everybody together to fight for subventioned cinemas. It is crazy not to have money from the government to subsidize cinemas, since we have theaters that are subsidized, etc., like you said. And this is something that is not new, but now we are noticing exactly what's going to happen, that many of the small cinemas will disappear. And the subsidies for art cinema have to be done. I really believe that, like you explained it. And to my new film, which is an essay film, a documentary essay film, not the easiest thing in the world to put in cinema, but still we have a distribution, and we hope very much to go to the cinemas. And this is a big question, you see. I don't want my film to be shown in the small screen before it goes to a big screen. I think the film would die, and I would die with it, because I believe profoundly that I need this fluidum between the people to understand, to feel with this film. And it's impossible. If you are alone at home, by the way, you're cooking or you're ironing or doing what have you, or you're sitting, but you're sitting alone or with your companion, but you're not in a cinema experiencing this stomach of the cinema, this big soul of cinema in which things happen without ever you noticing what's happening, but something's happening. And this thing, this mythological thing that is happening there, I need it for my film. And I think that every filmmaker would talk like I am talking at the moment. And I would be very, very sad if that's not possible.
But is it the collective experience that you would be missing, or is it the direct impact of the image on the viewer? Because you have the same impact if someone sits in front of his computers and streams a movie.
No, you don't have the same impact. In the small computer and in the TV or whatever you're seeing a film at home, you're getting the story. You're getting the line of the story. You're getting the dramaturgy, say, of the story. You're not getting the art and the way that a cinema is being told. You're not getting the poetry. You're not getting the music of it. You're not getting all the universe of details in the light, in the camera, in the whatever you have that has been used to tell a story. you just get the naked story, and all of the other stuff goes away. And what goes away too is this thing that happens between you and me when we're sitting in a cinema together. And that is not, you cannot change that.
I agree, but there is still another point to that, which Mrs. Berg stressed, because she said she wasn't in control when she watched Systemsprenger. She wanted to go out, and she couldn't, and therefore she had this great experience. When you're sitting in front of the screen and stream a film yourself, you're in control. You're the master of the situation. You can escape, you can stop watching any time you want. That seems to be a great incentive by which these traditional collectives in front of the screen are replaced by a swarm. A swarm that watches a film, maybe not at the same time, but during a week or something, and creates another kind of avalanche or phenomenon. But still everybody is alone with his own film, with the images. So isn't that a tendency that goes through all of the art world, that the collective retreats and the swarm is the model for the future?
I think both will stay, and I think both have their own weight and their own possibilities. I do not agree in the description, because I think that in many, many moments I feel a slave of the series or of the films that I'm seeing in one of the streamers. I am a slave in the sense that I decided to look at that, and it's catching me in a way that is not my will, like going to a cinema, sitting with other people together. There is something that has to do with Suchtverhalten, opium. You know, when you cannot stop looking at one of these horrible series, I mean, you cannot stop looking at it, even if you want to stop.
But that's how it works, and it works very well.
It does work very well, and that's what we have to fight with.
Maybe not. What do you say, Mrs. Winger? You created those products.
All my time trying to find the movies that I heard about, that I read about, that someone told me on like 16 different streamers, I feel like I've never looked at the algorithm. So I believe you that that's something that creates addiction for most people, but not for me. Like I am always looking for, I'd much rather go to the movies to see most movies, and I'm always going through Criterion or HBO Max. I'm like trying to find the thing that I heard was good, and it's very complicated to find the good movies. So to me, really, I guess it depends on how you come to look at things, whether you're looking for something specific or if you're just channel surfing. But I never channel surfed on TV either. So I think I maybe, again, I said something at the beginning, but I think it matters. I think that streaming and television are in direct competition, but I don't see cinema and streaming as being in direct competition. I feel like in as much as, we used to watch all the, Bond movies, old Bond movies on TV, they would come out once a year, every year. I mean, I grew up in America. Or The Wizard of Oz, even anything. There were certain movies you always watched on TV. But the first time I saw those movies on the big screen, it was mind-blowing, It was, somebody else said that, and I remember that too. So I think, I think it's really TV and streamers are definitely having like an epic smackdown. And I personally, I'm a streamer person, but I just don't think that cinema is the same thing. And I think everyone's going to go back to the movies. So that's my opinion. And I will go and see Frau Applebaum's movie when it comes out in the theater. So
we have a question from the audience. What we have three, but we start with this one. What do we think of watch parties which are offered on Amazon, the equivalent of Zoom parties? Would that be a model for creating this collective experience?
Could you explain what watch parties are? I haven't heard it before. No, I know. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Apparently, it's a model that where you can tune in to together with other people to watch a film or a serial together at the same time, like on Zoom or WebEx.
It's a Netflix app.
Makes sense, does it? Because if you are in a watch party, you could go to cinema. No?
Not at the time.
No, because the young people, they text at the same time as they're watching. They are doing 6 things at the same time as watching TV. I'm not defending this, but my teenagers do it. They watch TV and they text with their friends at the same time.
So but what does it mean?
Theater.
Yeah, but maybe, what does it mean? It's like here, we are together, we are watching a film, it's in the middle of the screen, and I can see all of you, and then we can talk about the film during the film? No, that's interesting. I don't know. So
it's like a live stream.
I never been to a watch party, but it sounds terrible.
Yeah. But you're all at home, so
none of you would like it. None of us. Yeah, it's not for our generation.
Yeah. You're not in the same room, so it's obviously a completely different experience than the cinema experience. It's even worse maybe for us, because you do actually chat with them, and you don't actually watch the screen that much.
Yes.
So I think it's completely different from the cinema experience.
Exactly.
Another question from the audience is whether we think that the cinema has missed important technical transformations in the past and is now paying the price. Would that be true? Old-fashioned cinema?
Did the cinemas overslept necessary steps of transformation?
What kind of transformation? Sorry that I ask every time, but what I think, because I don't understand what they have overslept. Maybe that they also show films as video on demand. It's like you said, sorry, I forgot your name. No, I don't forget your name. I don't know how I tell your name. No. You told us that you have something like video. Okay, John. Because you told us we have also something like this in Germany, that there is a company who has this special that you can see films on video on demand, and then if you see 4 films, then you get 1 ticket for free for the cinema. If you mean this, if the question is this, we tried this, I can tell you, in Germany, and I know only from the cinema owners, it doesn't really functionate in Germany. I don't know why. Maybe it's not the main thing for the cinemas. And
Kino on demand? Is that Kino on demand? Kino on demand?
Yeah, Kino on demand. Yes, you're right. Yeah, and some cinemas are doing this, and it's okay, but it's not really a hit. I know. Yeah. If they know,
I think the question was about what cinemas did to be on whether they have the right equipment, whether they are as modern in a technical fashion as streaming, if they have like Atmos sound and so on. I think cinemas have always been on the vanguard. I think whenever cinema was threatened by other mediums, cinema advanced. I mean, scope was invented first. Color film, then scope was invented because the TV screen was just Academy ratio, and I mean, every technical innovation up to now came to the cinema first, and then to the competitors. So I don't think that's the reason why cinema would be at a disadvantage nowadays. That has to do a lot more with social changes than with what cinema actually has to offer.
I think Christine Berg wants to answer this.
Yeah, I think the same, but I think there's also one other thing. What we don't do, we don't make advertising for this kind of cinemas. For example, we have one of the best cinemas in Munich. It's the Dolby Vision. It's really great, and it's not nobody knows it, but only a few people knows it. And this is really the best technical style you ever have. But only a few people knows it. And the film industry, for example, they don't know it, that we have something like this in Germany. So I think this is really what we can do better in the future, that we really say, hey, have a look what we have. So I think this is what we can do.
All these fantastic experiments we had at the cinemas, like 3D cinema and invasive cinema, all of these experiments also...
Smell cinema.
Excuse?
Even smell cinema.
Even smell cinema, yes. All of these experiments that have been done by cinema, for instance, 3D, that has been left away by the market, and which is really a pity, because there was a lot of also very artistic experiences with 3D that were highly interesting. But these things have to do extremely also with the market of cameras and the market of the whole hardware that comes with it. Now, I think that cinemas will have to be a little bit more aware about all the necessities of young people. For them to come to the cinema again, you have to offer them something. On the one hand, we really need subsidies for the cinemas, for the art cinemas. We need subsidies for the art cinemas. And on the other hand, we need cinema owners that are able to invent something so that people will go to the cinema. I think it will be necessary after these lockdowns that have taught us to be home and look at home.
If I could offer an opinion, it is definitely not my place to say how cinemas should operate. But in my experience, having worked in cinemas, is that the cinemas that always succeed, it's not about 3D or the seats or the air conditioning. It's about being connected to their community and feeling that the people who live around that cinema feel like they belong there, and it's part of their life, and it's somewhere that they would meet a friend on a Friday night, and it's not an alien eventized thing that they have to go to. It's part of their everyday life. And for that, we obviously need more cinemas in communities and neighborhoods and villages. The way, as Christoph was saying, we have, there's obviously a church in every city. So maybe we can convert them. No, but I think that the community, it's like embedded into the community, and that includes, children all the way to older people, everyone feeling like they have a space in that venue and they have a say in there. Not that they're curating it, but that they have a voice in it. And I think that community sense is what will distinguish the cinemas that can survive in the long run and the ones who don't.
Yeah, good. There is another question there.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, our third audience question is about the state broadcasters, the öffentlich-rechtliche, the state broadcasters.
What role they are playing?
Broadcasters in Germany, which role, or in other European countries, which role are they playing in this situation? What does the, for example, the Arte Mediathek and other TV venues, how do they influence the current situation? Do they take audiences away from the cinema, or do they keep the audiences alive in order that they can go to the cinema again when it reopens? Which is their function?
May I?
Yes, please.
Please.
I think the problem is elsewhere. It's not the online presence of the public broadcasters. It's the fact that in Germany and in Europe, there is no film being made for cinemas that is not co-financed by one of the public broadcasters. So every film made for the big screen is also made for TV. And therefore, inherently, there's a compromise. And that may be one of the problems with films made in at least Europe, where cinema is not refinanced on the market, but through subventions and by the public broadcasters. It may be one of the reasons that we have too few films that have the originality to actually distinguish themselves in cinema as opposed to television.
But no, but look at the United States. I mean, there's we have no public funding for anything, and there's very few art house movies, period. Like, everything is either a Marvel Comics, it's either there's no mid-range, there's Marvel Comics movies, and then there's very, very independent movies. But I think that one of the reasons, I mean, I don't know, I don't make films, but still, it seems to me from the outside, because a lot of people that I'm close to are filmmakers, that the public funding is what makes it possible to be a filmmaker in Europe. And that's something I really respect about France and Germany that simply doesn't exist in my country, where everything has to be privately financed. Everything, no matter what it is, So I don't know about the originality factor.
If you say there's no mid-range, then I'm saying in Europe there's only mid-range. Being Polynesian.
That's a great tagline.
Here's another question from the audience, because we've been talking about several ways in which the cinema must be protected. There is another, in Germany it's also the law, there's another way of protecting the cinema distribution, a 6-month gap between a film going on DVD and the cinema premiere. How do you think the success of the streaming portals affects this practice? Do you think it will be abolished or reduced? Will films go to streaming portals more easily, sooner, or to DVD? Yeah, I think Mrs. Berg wants to answer that.
Yeah, this is my new, I love this, because I think this is our really big challenge for the future. First of all, I think the 6 month, I don't know if everybody knows really the rules. The 6 month is only for the films who had subsidy from Germany and who subsidy from the FFA, because we have a law who said that that cinema has 6 months. This is the first thing. The second thing is, nobody knows that also streaming platforms, they have also a window, and because they need also some time to show the films. So they have a window which is also 6 months or more if they're films who get subsidy. So everyone has this window. It's not only the cinemas. This is the first thing. The second thing is, for all the other films, there is no rule. There's nothing. We have something like a gentleman agreement in Germany with the distributors that we said, for example, for the big ones, for the big American ones. And there's a gentleman agreement that the film will come to streaming after 120 days. But I think this is not the future. And we, for example, as the HDF Kino, we know that 6 months is really the past. It's not the future. And it's silly to if you think we can take this for the future with us. And I think also we have to react to the new kind of looking films, because the people outside, they want to see the film very fast. But I think what we have to do is we have to find a good way for both sides, for the film industry, so also for the producers and for the cinemas, and also for the streaming platforms and for the user. I don't know what is the right way and how long do we need, but I think this is really so important that we're now sitting together and we talk about this, the distributors and also we as the cinemas. And we said also, we went to the politic, because I think we need really help from the politic. In France, for example, they have also this kind of window, but they have a window which says that there is an agreement between the cinemas and the distributors. And the agreement says that the window is 4 months for every film who has a start in France. And if the film has not more than 100,000 admission after 2 weeks, then it's only 2 months. I think this is maybe the future. Maybe we have to see what can we do and can we bring something of this to Germany, because I think we have to talk about this and we have to talk seriously about this. So you see, this, I love it, because I think really this is the future, and it's so important that we are not. And I have to say this in Germany because I'm so emotional about this. Sorry, and I hope everyone can understand it. Wir müssen so aufpassen, dass wir nicht überfahren werden und dass sozusagen die großen Blockbuster kommen und einfach das mit uns machen, was sie machen wollen, sondern wir müssen mitgestalten. Okay, and someone can translate this. Yeah.
Thank you. We have to watch it that we are not overrun by this big, I didn't understand what she meant. By the big blockbusters, yes. And
but wasn't that what happened all the time before?
Yeah.
Is that really the great fear of the cinema, that Hollywood and the blockbusters will run over it? I think the development of the last decades went in another direction. Hollywood slowly lost its foot on European film markets. There were the usual blockbusters, but the middle Hollywood collection, the medium films, they didn't work as before. So art houses and even commercial European productions, they got a bigger share of the market. So what do we have to fear this, or do we have to fear that streaming services will take the audience from the cinema? What is your answer?
anybody?
My answer?
Somebody.
First, no, the middle one. This is, I think, a part of Christoph Terhechte, because he talked about this kind of films, I think. But my answer is very clear. First of all, this window, that slowly this window goes closer and closer. Yes, it started before COVID-19, that's right. But only a little bit. And what's happened now, it goes very fast. So that maybe the next films which are coming, the big ones, they want to have a window which is only a few days. This happened in America. No? I think you know it. In America, you have only 20 days, I think, right now. And about the films, I have no idea. Maybe someone else.
Well, I'm happy to jump in. I think the answer,
Thank you.
one of the answers is to diversify the film culture, because one of the problems is when the studios turn off the tap, as they can, if you as a cinema have depended completely on those blockbusters, you find yourself in a difficult position. And I think it could be a learning, or maybe for our cinemas to maybe diversify that content, so that we aren't this monoculture in a sense of blockbuster after blockbuster, and then when that ends, there's nothing sustainable left. I think it's important to help in that role of not educating is the wrong, just creating habits in audiences to expect other things. Because we find ourselves in a situation where people just want Avengers, and there may not be any more Avengers on cinema. So how do we deal with that for the wider business of cinemas? Thankfully, I don't have to worry about that because we don't deal with big studio things, and we are very confident that the films that we want to show and curate and play are there is an audience, a huge audience for it worldwide. So that's where my optimism comes from.
I would second that. I think it helps to compare with the music world. Lady Gaga does not compete with Beethoven, and neither does the record collector compete with the live opera. All these elements exist independent of each other, and in the best of worlds, they can actually support each other. We have to think diverse and not just one versus the other.
I think that's something that also the cinemas and our small cinema industry should discuss, because it cannot be this fight between the so-called blockbusters and the art cinemas. But I wanted to say something about what is going to happen now after the pandemic. We have heard that the Systemrelevanz, sagt man das auf Englisch auch? System relevant? Do you understand that word, Jon? Huh?
Yeah.
Systemic
yes,
relevance.
So.
Well,
systemic relevance, yes.
Systemic relevance. There are some parts of our life that have a systemic relevance, and it seems to be, if you turn the page around, that there are some that are not systemic relevant. And at the moment, the cultural cultural politicians are treating cinema as if it's not cultural relevant. Maximum, they will talk about it's necessary maybe to open again the museums or the theaters. Nobody talks about the cinemas. And this makes me feel terrible, because I always supported that cinema is culture, and it is our culture, and we have to protect it. And this thing with the systemic relevance is going to break our necks. And this is something that we have been shouting also from the Academy of the Arts, that the next step of opening, of trying to find a way, has to be to protect the arts, and not only, which is absolutely necessary, and we know that, and we fight for that, for the health, sure enough, and we are desperate when we know that the health is going down, or there are more deaths or things like that. But we have to talk about the enormous importance of art in our life, and of cinema in our life, and what it means when we don't have it anymore. We're going to lose something that makes us human, and that is remembering and enjoying art together. So, yeah, I'm getting very biblical. There is two more. It's very specific. Do you have an idea why retrospectives are less popular like in France?
I think the question means, why do people not flock into retrospectives of great masters of European cinema or Hollywood masters? Why is it not in Germany, not as in France, that the cinephilia is so high? Well, in a way, the question is already answered by the way I put it. It's Germany and not France. But maybe Christoph can expand on that.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I've lived in France for a while, and that I just wish that Germany had the same cultural practice when it comes to cinema, but also to comics. I mean, comic books are regarded as culture in France, and that's wonderful. We need to. I mean, it's probably the explanation to me is that Germany, although I grew up a Catholic, but Germany is a nation that is very much formed by Protestantism, and it's the word in Protestantism that counts. And so visual arts are not as strong as in Catholic countries. It may be a very simple explanation, but it's probably one of the roots and one of the answers to that question: why do the French appreciate cinema and comics and culture in general, everything audiovisual, more than we do in Germany? We have this distinction between the e-culture and the popular culture, and that is something that I don't understand. I never understood. I enjoy cinema, whether it's popular or completely marginal. It's film that enlightens me, no matter whether it's made for huge audiences or for freaks like me.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're saying this, that you need both and that you love both, because I think also it's so stupid what we are doing. That we say, okay, you're a big cinema or big film, and we don't like it, because you're big, or the other side, you're a small film, so we don't like it. It's really, I think we have a good industry, but I think what's very important, and I'm not really sure if they made it in France better than in Germany, but we need film education. We have just a little bit of film education, but it's not enough. It's so important that the young people, that they really grow up with film, that they understand what film is. So this is really so important in Germany, that we do something for this. And it's not only Vision Kino, this is one part. I think we have to do more about it.
I'm very sorry, but it's already 8:30, so that was a very good last statement. And I thank you all very much for joining us tonight for this panel. And do you have a last statement, Jeanine?
No, I don't. I find it very, very typical that the last question that comes in from the people that are seeing us tonight is how to open up to a young audience. And I think that you both gave, Christoph, and you gave the answer, not to make little boxes and separate, but to say all of it is cinema. As you said, Christoph, and comics and Bach. And all of it is art, and all of it is part of our culture. Difficult to convey, and we still have a long way to go, as long as there is not teaching of all these arts in the schools, which is where everything starts, I guess. Is there last fantastic words from anybody? Can we expect anybody of you to say famous last words, please?
Too much pressure.
Sorry. Then something very simple. How is the weather in Brighton, Jon?
It's about -2 Celsius, snowing earlier.
All right.
Classic British.
Here we have snow in the streets, and we have -6 or something like that. And how is it in Switzerland? Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if there was a final thought, it would be just to say how much I wish I was in Berlin now, as I am every February. And it's sad not to be there, but very nice to see it in the distance, at least.
Yes, we are sitting at the Pariser Platz, which is center of Berlin. How is it in Switzerland?
It's the same way. Yeah, I also woke up with snow this morning, which was really nice. If you don't look at the weather forecast, like I usually don't, then you wake up with snow. It's actually one of the most beautiful things, especially now that we're in lockdown. So we can enjoy at least the snow a little bit. And I must say, I got also really nostalgic when I saw you two sitting there. And yeah, I wish we could do this in person.
We have the Brandenburger Tor in our back, yeah. Anna, where are you sitting?
Oh, I'm in Kreuzberg, so I've got the same weather.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Andreas. Thank you very much, Andreas, for helping us go through the evening. And thank all of you. And thank you for the audience, which we don't see at the moment, but we imagine that they are there. Have a wonderful evening and see you all soon in life and healthy. All the best. All the best.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.